My name's Darren. I'm managing our EDI team here with Kavita. Kavita's going to introduce herself in a few minutes. We're just talking about equality impact assessment. So towards the end of 2023, we had some training delivered by Kavita to help as an organisation to forward this project. It comes under our EDI policy, but we really want to try and equip people to take this on themselves and use it in their own areas. At the moment, we're focusing EIAs on policies and also procedures and business cases. So we might talk a little bit more about that than anything else today. But it's really to give people an understanding of what an EIA is and practically how they can use it and take it in their own areas for conversation, and also to further equality in our organisation. So Kavita, thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Hello, everybody. As Darren said, this little video is being made for you by your equality team, because what we want to do is give the knowledge away to you, because when you behave in certain ways at work, in the way you behave, you advance equality for patients, for staff, for carers, for everybody. And sometimes we as an organization will need to capture that behavior. When things are going well and we can show best practice, it's good to document this because we have to. And so today in this little video, we would show you a little bit about what equality impact assessments are, what's the point about them, why should we do them, and how they can really enhance what we do in a trust. So let's start with what's an equality impact assessment. And so really, this is a tool, as in a form, that we as an organization, people in the organization have to talk about amongst ourselves. How do we behave in a way we do not cause people to have a differential outcome for different things? So the equality impact assessments comes from the Equality Act. So in the Equality Act, it asks us to demonstrate or to give due regard, and due regard is a word in the layman's term for give consideration. So how do we show that we're giving consideration for the 9 protected characteristics? And so in a different video, we had a little talk around what the protected characteristics were. For example, sex, sexual orientation, race, maternity and pregnancy, religion and belief, etc. So if the Equality Act is saying, show us that you have assessed whether there's any potential discrimination towards these protected characteristics, we want you to demonstrate it. So the equality impact assessment is the tool that the organization will use to say, when I run my service, I have assessed any possibilities of discrimination, and where there might be, I have done something to rectify it or to mitigate it. So these are and because we're a public body in the NHS, we're called the NHS, we're a public body, we have to follow something called our public sector equality duty. So the public sector equality duty is a set of duties, and we're going to go into it now, that asks us to do 3 main things. It asks us to eliminate discrimination, harassment, and victimization. It asks us to advance equality of opportunity for people who share protected characteristics and those who don't. And it asks us to foster good relationships amongst people. But how do we demonstrate these 3 things from the public sector equality duty? And one of the ways that we're showing you today is by using an equality impact assessment tool. And in your organization, we would see from Darren a little bit later on, what does your form or your tool look like, and how do we actually go about assessing if there's any disadvantage or discrimination for or towards particular groups. So the equality impact assessment is just a process that we will undertake as a group, because you don't want me alone assessing all this impact by myself, because I may not have the skills that you have in your teams. There's doctors, there's nurses, there's AHPs, there's nursing assistants, there's people in the administrative functions. You all come with a set of knowledge and skills that could add to this process, and we will encourage you to do it as a group. So when we think about why we should do an equality impact assessment, it is our legal duty as an organization to do it. And every ward, every service, every policy, every business case must have one. Now, whether it's 10 pages or it's 1 page, we still have to demonstrate that we went through the process of assessing the equality impact of our services. Now, when we think about demonstrating compliance, we're thinking that we have to have a written record that considerations have been taken in account. We have to ensure that all our decision makings in the way we run the organization is done in a way we avoid harm to people. And then we have to think about, is our actions really based around evidence? And today, for some of you who's listening, you, the staff, may have given evidence from documents or patients' views or the things you collect to say that there's a differential impact on people. And we use this evidence to do better. We quality improve. And this whole process is called an equality impact assessment because we're assessing impact. And your evidence is really important. And then we like to make decisions because it's transparent. And as an organization, we can show that we had a discussion. So say, for instance, we are a group of people looking at a policy in your trust. We spoke to enough people, enough different types of staff about this policy. We understood if there were differential impacts. So some people benefited and some people were discriminated or were disadvantaged. We need to find all of this out, go back to policymakers and rewrite this in a way it does not cause harm and it does not discriminate. And the equality impact assessment process helps us to do this. So in summary, an equality impact assessment is a tool that helps you, people in an organization, demonstrate that you're fair and you're advancing equality by looking at what you do, how you do it, and asking yourself, does this cause a differential impact for people, yes or no? And if it's yes, what am I going to do about it? That's what an equality impact assessment is in summary. Now let's look at what this form looks like. And Darren is going to bring up what your equality impact assessment looks like. So on your screen, if you're a group of staff having to complete an equality impact assessment on, say, a policy, for instance, you take the 9 protected characteristics on your left. You could see it: age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, and so on. And you're asking yourself as a group, could there be a positive or negative impact on what you do in this policy for the people? Is there potential negative or positive impact? And so if your policy is around, as a trust, we looked at your uniform policy, for example, recently, and some of the language in the policy around age was a bit old-fashioned. It was a bit outdated, and we thought as a group, actually, maybe because we have younger people in the organization, some of the words need to change. And so as a group, we thought it might have a negative impact, so let's do something about it. And we wrote, what are some of the things we can do for that policy? And then we went down for each protected characteristics and we asked ourselves, is there a positive or negative impact? Why did we think so? And what are we going to do about it? And legally, the court doesn't ask you for 100 mitigations or rectifications here. It just wants to know, did you consider it? Did you find anything that could be potentially discriminatory? And what did you plan to do about it? So as a group, you're planning to do something about it, to address it is really important. We're not asking you to do it this second because you may not have the resources in your team, or you might need a sign-off process. But the fact that all of you are able to speak up and say, actually, this process might have a negative impact for pregnancy and maternity, or for females, or for race, the fact that you're able to speak up about it and then as a group say, actually, let's do something about this, is the way you go about doing a good quality impact assessment. And so when this form is completed, it's sent to the EDI team, and they keep a log of it. But you could imagine the EDI team has a whole bunch of these forms, and they're looking through different protected characteristics for different departments, and they're building a picture of, is this a bigger problem as a trust for the things that we're finding? And then probably more higher up on strategic, they're talking about it at that level to go, in lots of equality impact assessment, we're seeing a picture for this particular protected characteristics, and all the wards are going about it in a certain way. Do we have to look at this from a trust-wide perspective? And so these forms, when you fill them out, needs to be good quality. It needs to be done as a group. And if you're not sure about something, consult your EDI team and say, do you have more evidence for this? Because you look at a lot of these impact assessment, and perhaps they might give some advice. But remember, you're the expert because you run these services. And so from my own experience as a ward manager, when I used to run a ward, this was my duty because I understand all the patients and all the staff, and I had to sit with this form to understand, is anything I'm doing here affecting people of different ages, my staff and my patient? Is anything I'm doing here running this ward affecting disability? So as a ward manager with my nurses and my doctors and my nursing assistants, we had to sit together to complete these forms. Normally it's once a year. So I'm recommending, if you have a team day once a year, these forms really get a good conversation going because all of you can contribute to it. So Darren, anything else from our EDI team perspective in terms of these forms you would want people to know?
I think it's, as you're saying, that it's really something that should be approached as a group rather than someone sitting down, they've written a policy, they want to go through the EDI elements and then the EIA at the end. They don't just sit and do it as part of writing the policy. They really go out and consult with people so they understand the different protected characteristics, because if you're writing something yourself, you may not see through that lens. So it's important to go out to the people that know. So that might be our staff networks, it might be different patient groups. We have a lot of patient groups in the organisation that we can touch base with, really to get that information back in detail that you need to review. The other thing that strikes me as well as we talk about maybe people being disadvantaged by protected characteristics, but when we link that together in our organisation, we think about that in terms of health inequality as well, because those two things often do go hand in hand. That if there's a disadvantage there, it probably will bring a health inequality too. And when we're designing our policies and our procedures, they're things that we really need to think about. And as you're saying, Kavita, it may be things that we can't actually rectify or mitigate against. It may be something that we need to log, and as an EDI team, we might see patterns within that there are gaps and bigger problems that we need to look at. Or there might be things that when you're reviewing in 12 months, you can see as a group you've progressed in that area. In terms of our policy, I suppose, and our actual documentation, what we've done is break that down into a kind of simplified guide that runs through the EIA process in detail, goes through the steps that you'll need to go through. And then we've written separate documentations with Kavita's help that are specific for ward areas, specific for policies, specific for business cases, and also one that we've done in a more general sense that might fit into all kinds of different categories. For example, if you were writing some new patient information, you might want to run it through that as a bit of a checklist. So we've put these things in place along with the videos, along with the training, to really help support people to fill these in and do them in a quality way that will actually help us progress EDI in our trust. And all we ask that you do is, once you've completed these, that either they go through the ratification that's required. So for policies, that might be the policy review group. For business cases, that's the resource committee. But after you've done that and they've been validated, they do get stepped back and sent through to our EDI team, and then we can sort of keep them together and look for any particular areas, and also collect this really valuable information that we can share with others. And if people do struggle with the general information, we know that if you're writing it within an area, you really are the people that understand how that policy, that procedure, whatever it is, how that works. You have that expert knowledge. But if there's any other areas that we can support with in a more general sense, then please do get in touch with us.
Thank you, Darren. I think for everybody listening today, when you say that you're going to embed equality into everything you do as a staff member, speaking up and giving your views around the equality impact assessment is a great start, because what you're doing is you're advancing equality for all the protected characteristics. And I think that's a great way. As a staff member in the NHS, we say that we hold EDI as the golden thread that runs through everything. And using these tools like an EIA is one great way of demonstrating this. So thank you, Darren, for this little video, and I hope you use it, and let us know if you need any help from the EDI team.
Thank you.